From the studios of the Department of Communication in Phillipsburg, welcome to Prime Minister Talks with Honorable Prime Minister Sylvaria Jacobs.
Good afternoon from The Hague, Netherlands. You are tuned in to PM Talks, and this is episode 18. Today is a very special episode of PM Talks. I am here in The Hague, Netherlands, in the St. Martin House, and with me, my colleague in Parliament and leader of the UP Party, who also made the trip to the Netherlands on this auspicious occasion, as we had the Kingdom Council of Ministers meeting on Friday yesterday. MP, Chairman of Parliament, Rolando Bryson.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for having me on once again on Prime Minister Talks. It's last time I got some good reviews. It was like, wow, there's a good chemistry here. Everything is good. Again. So let's do it again. So once you told me, hey, we're here on a very important occasion, if we can talk to the people and give them a much look forward to update on what is happening over here, I think it's no better people than the two who have kind of witnessed it for ourselves.
Yes, I must say it was even though initially I didn't see, doesn't make a difference who comes to the meeting, seeing that especially the other prime ministers who's coming, it was important for me to also make that trip, and then especially with the blessing of Parliament and government to represent the people of St. Martin in this very, very important deliberation regarding the Kingdom Consensus Rijkswet.
Of the secret entity that some people are calling
which was up until a week and a half, two ago, a secret entity. No, a week ago.
Yeah.
What am I saying? A week?
This week.
Tomorrow will be a week that we know exactly what it's all about. And upon reading that document, I can tell you that several legal minds said they got an instant headache.
Yeah.
Right here, we are in The Hague, Netherlands, at the St. Martin House, and we traveled at the last minute with the blessing of Parliament after a marathon session about this entity. Why was it a marathon session? Is because I felt it important to bring it to Parliament, even though it had been shrouded in secrecy. It was sent confidentially to the countries, watermarked, each country with its own name on it. And we were told that it would more than likely be tracked if it was sent. However, seeing that a decision would have been made in the Kingdom Council of Ministers related to it that would affect us all, and that the Dutch government expected us to make a political commitment to it in order to be able to receive the third tranche of funds as a result of liquidity support requested as a result of COVID-19, which is a loan, by the way, I felt it pertinent, and after getting legal advice, to share it also with Parliament. It is, all I can say is a very heavy document, more than 200 pages. My partners in Curaçao and Aruba in our discussions were also very much outraged by it. And I started to see some details surfacing already in social media, etc. So I'm like, somewhere already it's in the world. There's no way I'm hiding it from my Parliament or keeping it confidential from them when it totally affects them and the rest of the people of St. Martin. So, usually I'm doing the questioning, but it's going to be more or less a conversation. Just tell me how you felt when you got the gist of what that entity.
I think the first good step you did, Prime Minister, and it's something I mentioned in the Parliament meeting, is that it's such a refreshing feeling to be a member of Parliament and have a government that is so open with everybody. I remember in the past, when we were so frustrated, when everything the government was doing, it was if you had to keep it a secret, the World Bank Fund, the NRPB, the airport loan. Here you're saying, even kind of, I would dare say, a bit in defiance of what the wishes of BZK would be. Like, no, I have a responsibility to inform my Parliament. We put the document up there so that confidentially we could go through it. I think that was the first step in you securing unanimous support, actually, in Parliament to denounce this, and also to tell you, every single parliamentarian came on and said, no, go. And actually, I don't know if you had realized this. I think only when we came to the Binnenhof, I realized that this was the first time since 10-10-10 that all three prime ministers attended a Rijksminister meeting. So it actually turned out to be very four. Three from the islands.
Right.
And yeah, I think that was all of this kind of tantamount to set the tone in the meeting. I mean, how did you feel that was that the three prime ministers together with the Prime Minister of the Netherlands now being there in person. Did that help set the tone for the meeting a bit?
It was indrukwekkend, as they would say. Very much you felt the importance of it. I've been in the Kingdom Council of Ministers before. It's people on their phones or whatever the case is, but literally people paid attention. There were introductory remarks by the State Secretary, and then each country got the opportunity to give their input, which we did, and the State Secretary as well as the Finance Minister rebutted, and sometimes the Prime Minister also spoke. For me, it was important to be here, MP Bryson, because my parliament did something that made me super proud. We have been hearing for the past 10 years, it's time to get together. We must be one, forget the elections and do it for country St. Martin. And this is really a time I felt it. We've seen it for legislation sometimes. You've seen it, you've gotten a unanimous vote. But this was such an important piece of legislation, Kingdom consensus law, which requires all parts of the kingdom to have discussions, and these types of discussions usually take months before it can even reach to the Kingdom Council of Ministers. And here was an entity being put forward under this law that would remove
the democracy.
Autonomy, the democracy, the rights of the countries to set their own agenda. You're being told, we will have separate discussions on the Landstaken and on the secondary part of the document that had per country all of the different things, the reforms that had to be worked on, etc. But we as a country have our national development vision, and we are not given an opportunity as a new government to have our stakeholder discussions in order to say this is our priority for the 4 years.
One comparison.
In the midst of a disaster.
One comparison that someone gave to me is it's like having the Netherlands Antilles without the democracy.
Yes.
So without the part where Curaçao and Aruba are electing members to the Netherlands Antilles, now it's just a Netherlands Antilles, a central government.
For the former Netherlands Antilles?
Yes, for the former Netherlands Antilles, but now without the democratic side of it, because all members would be selected by the Dutch government. So whether the intent or not was so by the Dutch government, the fact is, as presented, it would not work in the best interest of the islands. And I was very happy to see that the islands on the government side said, no, this has pushed the envelope beyond what we can accept for.
And I know they made many attempts to get individual countries to still agree to this as a condition to receive liquidity support. And I think that is also the second travesty. First, was that you're not getting an opportunity to have a discussion about the content of a law that would affect all of us. Second, that you're being told, give a political commitment and then you can get needed emergency funds to help the people of St. Martin. That to me is extortion. And it is the second time I've experienced it firsthand. The first time was after Hurricanes Irma and Maria, when we were told to get the recovery funds, you have to make sure you have an integrity chamber. You must have increased protocols based on our justice regulations and the strengthening of the justice chain that was being done. They wanted to impose some other measures on the strengthening thereof. And we're like, but we're in the midst of these talks. Why force it ahead of time in the midst of a disaster? And that is what I have a fundamental problem with, and I was able to share that on the floor of the Kingdom Council of Ministers.
Wow. Well, I think it, and what's also very concerning for us, especially as members of parliament, we were looking at it that this kind of felt like a deja vu. Because you mentioned, 2018, they come with the NRPB law, they come with all of these different things. And at the time you were told, listen, you need to do this because this is what it will result in. It will result in all kinds of things, 550 million going into the community. We unfortunately know that maybe sounded good in theory, but in practice, it had its flaws. How do we know that this entity will not even have similar or even more flaws? You didn't give a chance for the experts to weigh in, for nothing. So I think, would you say, because the most common question, and I know people are going to be posing questions, but I can predict the most common question, and it's the hardest question. Okay, what next?
Yeah, that question we have been fielding from the very beginning. And you know, as our coalition partner, we have the discussions within the coalition over and over again. Where are we now? What can we do? How long can we go with the funds that we have? How are we progressing? And we have seen from April until now, MP Bryson, that every month there was still a little bit more in the till without visitors.
That's right.
Yeah, the first month it was pretty low. We were panicked. We accepted the conditions. When I say panicked, you know, afraid for our sustainability and the ability to be able to pay salaries to our civil servants, who, let me correct, do not make up the majority of the population, because that story is also being bandied about.
Yes, exactly.
That is not correct. But it would also affect the persons, MP, that we were trying to help, who would be out of a job. The persons who, the business owners, have been up to date with their taxes and were requesting salary support from government. And we were able to give this in the first month because of the liquidity support that we were able to finally get from 2019.
Which is actually for Irma, by the way.
And for Irma, so that we can maintain at least 2 months worth of reserves in our coffers.
Yeah, you're using a Band-Aid that was for a cut on your knee, for a Band-Aid on a cut on your hand. No.
But at the end of the day, it was reserve funds.
Yes.
And if you have your reserve funds and you run into a disaster,
you have to use it.
You have
of
to
course,
use your reserve funds. So it was not misused, for sure. And I must say, there were extra costs for CPS. There were extra costs to house persons in quarantine. There were a lot of unforeseen extra costs. 300,000 every time we had to go to purchase food to disseminate in the public. So there were costs that were building up and less funds coming in. And so we did take those conditions against our gut feelings, because we knew it's a build-up and you can expect worse conditions. And this entity kept playing in my mind. And for the entire 6 weeks we were waiting, MP, I asked the question in every bilateral, in every 4-country consultation and could get no answers. Speaking to my colleagues, have you heard about the entity? Do you guys know what it's about? What could I nix? We're holding nix. Finally, it's coming on the 3rd of July. You're going to get the documents the Monday before. No documents Monday. No documents Tuesday. Sent a letter. I still haven't received anything. I was told I was going to get a call. I missed the call because they called the wrong phone. Finally, when I called back, later down in the week, I had already heard from the CAFMIN, it's put off for next week. But I'm still calling. Where's that information? Where's that information? Finally, we get the information, and the documents come on Monday.
Yes, Monday.
Monday the 6th.
That's right. Late Monday, we got it.
And then we have to take a decision without discussing with Parliament, without discussing with stakeholders, which is unheard of. No. All 3 parliaments held one head. All 3 governments held one head. And in that, I'm very, very proud of St. Martin. But the what next question. What next for St. Martin is we anticipated unacceptable conditions. And so we didn't wait until now to start planning.
You have to always prepare for the worst.
And because of our resilience as a country, we did talk about having that SSRP money in the hands of the employees. They can shop. It turns around money in the country. So the same money moving around the country, but it's able to help everyone. And so that is our goal. And Minister of Finance still has the last requirement to meet, which is to change our Start Out program, which we started without getting the COVID-19 funds, into the model that the Dutch prefers, which would see less funds going to those needy persons. And I find that very ironic, since the reason we are getting the help and getting the conditions is so that the money goes to the people who need it. And here we are being forced to cut back on the aid that we're giving to those persons in the SSRP. Minister expects that he hasn't done, but he's still trying to negotiate to not have to do that. And we have until the 15th. And once that is done, we will get the balance on the 29 million that is still owed.
And that should carry us.
That should carry us together with what we have been receiving for some time. However, later down in the year, we will have to ensure that our economy is up and running, and that if necessary, we have other options. And those options are being worked on. I'm not at liberty to go into details here, but know that the government of St. Martin will not allow our country to go under based on these unreasonable demands that are being made of us. We are committed to doing the reforms, but we only in government for 3 months. Give us the opportunity to have the discussions with our stakeholders, prioritize the reforms, and plan them. And if the Dutch government would like to sit with us and disseminate funds for that through an entity, we have no problem. But we must be able to sit as respectable partners around the table to do so in a conscientious and fair manner.
And if you look at the motion from Parliament, even gave the government full unanimous support, go out there and find other means to finance ourselves. So, I mean, are you going to get a step-by-step on one briefing here today, every single plan? Obviously not, because, you want to strategize, you want to have your stakeholder consultations too. You don't want that the stakeholder that you're going to be negotiating with to get funds is finding out on a live stream on the government page. So I'm sure that question must be coming all over the chat. But that information, I can imagine, is going to be forthcoming for the public once those necessary consultations and negotiations have taken place. But I think the main message you're saying, Sir Martin, we're not giving up. We're not just chilling and waiting. We are working for every possible alternative to help our people.
Yes, and in some of the defense that was brought forth in the Kingdom Council of Ministers, they mentioned we have been a country for 10 years and we have not lived up to our obligations. From in March, actually, we were hearing that narrative from the second chamber, the kunnen autonomy meet and I'm like, why is that being said? We are a fledgling country. We did not have, as was stated in the Dutch press yesterday, the schuldsanering that was promised. The Netherlands Antilles had schuldsanering, but it was not St. Martin's debt. And we did not receive the returns on that debt because we did not have the entities on St. Martin. And so our start position was way behind because we did not have many of the LOMS responsibilities, the LOMS on Vanger, and all those things. We were just annexes to what was in Curacao. So all of the buildings, all of the structures. So we had to rebuild our build our responsibilities from the ground up. And I think, and many of the politicians from then state that back then they signed on for the CFT, for instance, based on what was going on. They were forced, basically, you want to go start us apart, you will have financial supervision for minimum 3 years that you are carrying your financial responsibilities. And that has been the yoke that actually killed our development.
The CFT, and what's interesting, when you read the CFT law in itself, they actually have been overstepping. For example, the law says that they report to Parliament. So that's something that they didn't used to do. They used to make it seem like, hey, Parliament, we come in when we feel like. No, they have a reporting responsibility to us. So to a certain extent, I kind of understand in 10 people reading that document saying, okay, this is more like an entity that's going to advise us on how to manage our budgets. And then the reality turned out to be much different. Now you actually
need the approval.
And doesn't that sound familiar?
And they stop you from being able to invest.
They stop your investments. And it's unfortunate. That's why you can't just sign on to things just like that. We have to learn. We're a young country. We have to learn that in the past, you were told, no, man, don't worry, sign this like sweat. It's just to help you with some financial supervision. And then look where we are 10 years later. And despite that, what I do like, and that I do hear some people within the Tweede Kamer, for example, mention, and I'm hoping some ministers acknowledge this, is that despite that, St. Martin has been in a pretty good financial position. We were on our way to 3 balanced budgets. The only reason that didn't happen was Hurricane Irma. And that would have been such a great monumental thing for St. Martin.
And though the reforms, we do need immigration reform. We need education reform. We need the pension reform. We need financial reform. But we cannot for sure, and look at that, the entity being proposed under the Rijkswet was going to be for 7 years. Yet the expectation was that within the first 2 to 3 years,
we had to do everything.
We should have had everything done. And I think that's very, very unrealistic. But the commitment is there of this government and this parliament to together deal with whatever laws needs to be dealt with and move forward so that we can save save on expenditures
That's right.
and put funds towards where they need to go. As a matter of fact, I know that I get a lot of backlash back as a Minister of Education when I try to move funds that we saw were going too much in one direction because it benefit a group. And I'm not going to be the way the Netherlands talks about us and say, oh, all are like that. No, we try to put policies in place, but you have years and years of habitual behavior that had never been legislated or put in policy.
Yep.
And so you have the persons there willing to take you to court. But at a certain moment, if we find within government's budget that funds are being expended without the proper legislative procedure, we have to take the steps. We have to take the steps. That is maturity.
Yeah.
And I think we have the stability now to be able to do so.
Yeah. And I think, what is also what I really admire about our parliament and our government is that we're not afraid to handle the things that have been unhandled for so long.
Yes.
The term is always used, kicking the can down the road. Well, that can has finally been picked up, put in the garbage and say, let's deal with this can. Let's recycle it. That's finally been happening because, for example, today or yesterday rather, we finally had a debate on the AOV law and adjustment. And, it was a very healthy debate. Of course, pension age is a topic that people feel a certain way about. But what I'm happy to learn in that law is that it's actually causing an increase in the pensionable amount.
Pension,
and as a matter of fact, there may be an amendment coming to increase that even further.
Even more.
But these are the things that you have to do and face them, especially even in your hardest times. Make those reforms now so that we can come out of this stronger than ever.
And another thing that I found prior to coming to the Netherlands and we had our parliament meeting and we also met with the stakeholders briefly. We couldn't, of course, share the document with them, but we shared the highlights with the unions, the WICLU, and with the representatives from the chamber. We had sent out invitations. It was short notice though, based on how it had happened, to the employers' representatives as well, to give them a gist of what's going on. The unions are 100% supportive, as well as the employers' representatives. The concerns remain with abuse of the SSRP. So we have to ensure that the checks and balances are there to ensure that the employers take care of the responsibilities as was requested.
And I know those changes
government.
are coming, right?
And
to adjust the SSRP ministerial regeling so that we can...
So that we can also publish. Because with the original ministerial regulation, they could not publish the names. There's a Privacy Act that was invoked. However, with the changes, also including what the Netherlands wanted in there, and if this, I'm just saying, this is not the wish of our government, but in order to receive the balance of the funds, the minister would have to make that adjustment unless they cave in before the 15th. Otherwise, you know how that goes in negotiation. And we aim to be able to continue with that as long as possible. But the faster we get our economy running, the less persons will need SSRP and the less will need unemployment. So that is our goal for the people of St. Martin and the businesses to do. There's also a program that is coming out that would also grant small loans.
Yes, very important. And a lot of people looking forward to that.
That was the main part of what we had requested the third tranche of the funds for. So that we could support especially the small businesses to continue to run on a very, very small low interest loan. And if we cannot get those funds, then we'll have to go to the banks and we will have to make some type of a deal so that small business owners will get at least a 2 to 3 year window in which to get an investment to be able to build back, rebuild, rebrand their businesses, especially in this new COVID-19 social distancing time where they might have had to make adjustments.
Significant adjustments are being made, of course. And, tourism is something I always keep saying, especially me being a tourism person, I love the industry and so, but we also understand the risks involved. Slowly and responsibly. Oh, there? Yeah,
it's okay.
Reopening, we had a little message there. Slowly and responsibly reopening is important, but also finding other means. And like I said, we know and understand the worry that the public have. And I think one thing that everyone can rest assured, when I speak to the ministers, you speak to the members of parliament across the board, everyone is working really, really hard to try to get these things done. So, Prime Minister, I'm sure another question that has come up. What is it like working with your colleague prime ministers in the islands in
Yes.
terms of this whole situation? What is that
must say-
dynamic like?
Yes, through COVID, we have built a relationship. And even though this week was the first time we met in person as a group, I did meet Prime Minister of Aruba when I was here in the Netherlands as a member of parliament back in
Yes, we
2019.
briefly met her, yes, I remember
But
that.
now, this was the first time that we met, and we were in the meeting in the Council of Ministers when that happened, and it was a very good meeting. We've been in almost daily contact since the COVID situation, talking about health, talking about recovery in Via London Overleg with Mr. Knops and, support teams. And for me, it has been a great experience. I've had a very lovely dinner with Prime Minister Eva Cruz before she left on Saturday today. And we were able to talk about how we would continue to work together in the future. So hopefully I'm seeing Prime Minister Rugenaat this evening, and we can also have that discussion. But for me, I feel like I have to continuously ensure that we work together, not just as the 3 islands, but I've also been having discussions with other islands in the Caribbean so that we can bond with other countries going through similar travesties or going through similar challenges.
So you've been in touch with the prime ministers of the other islands?
Yes, the Prime Minister of Barbados, the Prime Minister of the BVI, the Prime Minister of Ralph Gonzalez, who's the head of
I would love
CARICOM
to
at the
imagine
moment.
what your group chat looked like.
One thing I can say is the Caribbean is in solidarity with St. Martin and the other 2 Dutch islands, and many feel like it is a step back to colonialism if this entity is established as proposed. So all we're saying is that for me, important is coming here to the Netherlands to get our side of the story told, and not just in the Kingdom Council of Ministers, which is a closed meeting, but also to the media. The Dutch media carries only the Dutch story.
Right.
And I really think it is high time that the people of the Netherlands also understand, and especially our St. Martiners living here,
Yes, that's right.
understand what it is we are fighting for. We are fighting for more of an equitable position within this kingdom. We don't have equal amount of people. So they say, of course, you can have equal representation, but in any decision making that affects us in this way, it must be equitable.
Yes.
It must be fair.
What's good for your people is good for us.
Exactly. And the people of St. Martin, for
simple.
me, each country has their people at heart.
Yes.
But we have so many ties across these countries. It is basically like it's one country.
Yeah.
And I'm wishing each and everybody in the Curacao, Aruba, and St. Martin continued strength, forza, sterkte, because we have to go through this together. And if they continue to, let's say, play hardball, that things end up going worse before they get better, I would like the people of St. Martin to remember that we have been through worse. We had 3 full months of 0 income after Hurricanes Luis, I don't remember how long, and after Maria and Irma and Maria, we had 3 to 4 months of no income, no flights, no ships. And we bounced back from that based on the people's resilience. So I'm going to ask each and every one of you, come together. If you know of people who are still needy, who are only getting 60% or 50% of their salaries, have them go to the labor office and make their complaints. We have to be stopped, or should I say, we should stop being afraid of reporting. That spirit of silence is what allows people to take advantage of you. And I think that's what happened to St. Martin in the past 3 to 4 years. No more will that happen. I am one, I think I've proven it over the past few months. If I have the information, I share it. And the chips will have to fall where they may. But I am not going to sit by and be complicit in taking St. Martin back into colonial or even, worse times. Not in a time when everybody's talking about Black Lives Matter. For me, my mantra these days, small islands matter. And the people of small islands are more resilient than the big ones. And if Spain and Italy could need help, you cannot look down your noses at us who never had 100 years of independence to establish all the institutions that are necessary as in a big country to build up our small country.
It's sometimes shocking to me, the expectations that are placed on a small island, St. Martin, that is so unique, that is 2 sides on one small island. All of these interesting dynamics. We're in a hurricane belt. I mean, you have...
And a beautiful location.
Yes, you have all of this, and you're still expected thus immediately to be 100% tip-top on everything. No, it takes time. One of the questions we get often too is about tax reform. And one of the key things with tax reform is that it takes time. You need a couple years to do that. And hopefully, maybe just this might be a little symbolic, but seeing the two parties have come together and are going to give us 4 years of governance and the stability needed to do things like tax reform. And all of these things that we've wanted to see. I think, and even speaking to people within the finance ministry, they said that has always been a major problem. Because when you want to change your tax reform, not only the laws, but just a simple thing that I didn't think about. What about the forms? Just designing that form that you need to fill in all the information. How much information do you need? It can take a year or two. I know that the Minister of Finance, despite COVID, has had a team working on some of those things. Yes, I'm happy to hear that. A lot of business people and also the average person is looking for a fairer tax system.
Yes.
It looks like we're indirect taxes. Most studies have shown have been the best way forward.
Our government program.
That is, yes. So that is something, despite while COVID is at the forefront, it's sometimes behind the scenes, you might not see it. But we know for a fact that the tax reform is also coming. Because that was a question I saw a couple of times within the live stream as well regarding tax reform.
It's been a stressful period. Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna lie, it's been a tough couple of months dealing with first the panic of COVID, the unknown of COVID, having to put measures in place that had never happened before, changing the lifestyle and culture of a people who are very expressive, hugging, kissing, loving. And being here in the Netherlands just 2 days, I am seeing that some of our measures go far beyond what I'm seeing here.
Yep.
I saw someone send me a message. They see me in a picture and I'm not wearing a mask. Now, first of all, when you're out in the open, the fresh air, it's very low chance, especially as long as you maintain a proper social distance, to become ill from COVID-19. So even here in the Netherlands, the outside patios, etc., are a little less strict. But every store that I went into, most of them, especially
Did you notice the counting machines?
They use their baskets too.
Yes.
So they use the basket, X amount of baskets. Once the baskets are done, no one else can go in. So you see lines outside of certain areas. So it might be disgusting, but it is something that the whole world is dealing with. We are busy reopening our economy. We are trying to ensure that testing takes place. A lot of people have complained that they went to KLM, had their ticket booked, and they couldn't get on a flight because they did not have the PCR test that is required to enter St. Martin. So we too also have to PCR test before we go back, even though we've only been gone for a short while. I have been protecting myself and ensuring my safe distance, and definitely not hugging and kissing people that you don't know, wearing a mask when I do have to be within that time. Now, of course, I've been spending a lot of time with Rolando, and we come from mostly COVID-free country because we only know, it's no COVID, but it's no confirmed cases of COVID. We have to be realistic when we say those things. Up until the day of today, and I saw the update from Dr. Raisa Chonkomvat, our epidemiologist at CPS, that there are no new confirmed cases, no persons in hospital, etc. They have people in quarantine, and more than likely, those are residents who have traveled back or been in contact with someone else. But we will continue to do what we have to do, get testing at the airport done, and in that way, we'll be able to bounce back much faster. Because for me, we cannot stick our heads in the sand and hide anymore from what is going on. Money is circulating in the community because the people of St. Martin are going out there. They're shopping for food.
Support locals,
and definitely support.
Keep as much as your local,
if you buy everything online, the money leaves the country.
That's right.
Unfortunately.
And what's like unfortunate is like if to buy like a charger for a phone that's $5 cheaper on Amazon. Like, oh come on, if it's $5 more expensive in town, why not? At least it stays within,
so that we can help more people.
So, but I do think what I have to point out, and we you have discussed this so much, the amount of new entrepreneurship opportunities that have come up.
And credit.
The delivery services, people are even little things like designing their own masks.
Right.
There's a lot of those things that are coming up. I even spoke to a car rental that's saying, you know what, since I'm not renting cars, I want to try to engage with some of the people that want to do deliveries and give them like a deeply discounted rate, like $10 a day, just saying something, and say, okay, take the car, go do your deliveries, bring it back, and pay me whatever. Those are the type of new ventures that are coming out as a result.
We have to figure out how they say back in the day, how one hand can wash the other.
Yeah.
We need to figure out how your business can enhance my business, how mine can enhance yours.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were in the midst of COVID and had to do deliveries, I asked people, I literally begged people, start a delivery business, become the delivery component of an established business. And you saw that some of the companies ran into a lot of problems because they still wanted to use the same people who they had to do other work to do deliveries. You have to spend a little bit to be able to facilitate your customers. And here, almost every restaurant is delivering still, even though people can go out and shop. All the supermarkets should try their best to get delivery systems online.
Yes.
If we have to open up our country, it is best that the persons who would be susceptible to get seriously ill stay at home or work from home. But the healthy population be out there and work. So if some percentage of your population is at home, they will require delivery.
Yes.
They will require delivery. They will be exposed to their family members, limit their movement. And then when you go out, please, if you have high blood pressure, diabetes, all of that, make sure when you are out in public, you wear your mask. You wear your mask. I have my mask always at my hand. There we go. St. Martin made mask, by the way.
Yes.
And I ensure that I protect myself.
Yeah.
Because I have had bronchitis, so I know I have to protect myself.
Yeah.
You have to protect yourself.
Yes.
You have your allergies. All of us who have some kind of underlying health issues, you have to protect yourself.
Yes.
St. Martin can bounce back from these people. I have said it in a previous interview earlier today. If you dream it, you believe it, start to plan for it, and sit with others who believe in your dream, it happens. Positive thinking. We can and will survive this. We have survived worse. In fact, we survived slavery. So we're here in the Netherlands. This is episode 18 of PM Talks, our first from the Netherlands.
Yes.
Something else now that we can do because we have COVID-19 and we learn to do things virtually.
Yep.
So whether you're in the Netherlands, whether you're in St. Martin, you can bring the same message or whatever message you want to bring. And I'm super proud of all the St. Martin people who have gone online, who have paid their bills online now, who do their banking online now, who can do their shopping online. And slowly but surely, St. Martin will get there to being one of the top countries in the world when it comes to e-commerce, e-government, and the like. It's a goal, it's a vision, and we will get there.
It looks like our time is up. We can just roll with the tides as it goes. I always enjoy our conversations, Prime Minister. It's a pleasure being with you again.
Public or private?
Yes, exactly. Whether public or private, and I hope all of you appreciated and enjoyed the insight. I did my best to take a few of the questions that I saw within the live stream. But we'll be doing this again.
Yes,
I think
in the coming weeks. Communication after the COVID situation wasn't like as much. It's tiring also, but keeping our people informed is a number one priority.
That's
and
right.
Education can happen through all mediums, and right now, internet is it.
That's it. Right.
So I want to thank you, MP.
Thank you,
for
Prime
joining
Minister.
me on the trip. First of all, on your own. Okay, Parliament didn't send him.
Yes, I
joined
on my own accord.
Own.
Says Citizen Rolando right now.
Yes, but it was good to have him here. We've been covering the media here, and we will continue to lobby with Parliament and government here in the Netherlands so that more of those decision makers here understands the perspective of St. Martin, of Curacao, of Aruba, as we continue to strive for a more equitable kingdom. Thank you for joining us. I'm Silveria Jacobs.
Rolando Bryson.
And we're out for today.
Live long
Episode
and prosper.
18 of PM Talks. Have a blessed day. Be safe.